Understand that congressional testimony, listen to this. If you think this is a joke, listen carefully. Dr. Jose Delgado, and that's Delgado, director of neuropsychiatry at Yale University Medical School, on the congressional record, volume 118, February 24th, 1974, said, listen carefully, we need a program of psychosurgery for political control of our society. The purpose is physical control of the mind. Everyone who deviates from the given norm can be surgically mutilated. The individual may think that the most important reality is his own existence, but this is only his personal point of view. Listen to this line. Man does not have the right to develop his own mind. This is the beginnings of what you're going through. This kind of liberal orientation has great appeal. Therefore, we must electronically control the brain. Someday, armies and generals will be controlled by electric stimulation of the brain. 1974, peeps. And then that leads us to this. What did Steve Biko say?
The most important weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed.
Which is why I am focusing in on the tenets and the protocols of mind control. Today, once we understand the system in place, you'll see. Now we get to the godfather of the mind control paradigm that we're functioning under in 2000. His name is Sigmund Freud. Understand and get to learn about this creature because all kinds of demons started coming from this bastard. That's who he is. This is who he is. He is a creature, essentially a creature without any feelings. He put into place different monsters that never existed in the mind of humanity. He defined how you think today. And this guy on the top is why the Batman movie was so significant. When he played the Joker, did you look at that movie? It was a serious game of mind control. He played the Joker. I like Jack Nicholson's funny ass thing before, but this one was a psychopath. Complete, absolute agent of chaos. From the time the self-conscious, listen carefully, here's where we start getting really deep. From the time the self-conscious, called the soul, re-enters the confines of organic matter, the brain it animates is told by way of words, gestures, and behavior how it should view the world, how the concepts of reality that anchor a societal mindset should govern its life, and how it should look upon these anchors as inherent, instinctual, God-given commands. So what they're telling you is that when a baby is born, and the Russians are experimenting with this, they have children that have been isolated completely from society, all the world. And they are growing up in a non-interactive society. They are looking to see what happens to the human soul when it does not have any preemptive information to brand it and to staple it into a reality. And these children are reading minds. There it is, that Vin Diesel movie that came out. The one that he began to talk about when he went up there, because it was the nuns that got them in there, in that place. So you have to understand that they have these people that they are getting ready for tomorrow. Not you, them. But there are second and third meanings or formalized conceptual subtext to every word, gesture, and action we hear, interpret, or act upon, every word we use. The consciousness synchronizes and reality manipulators continuously use these key words, but are very careful not to use their synonyms to reinforce their speculation of reality. So they will use specific words without using their opposites to let you know that there is another variation on the theme. So you will get certain words to entrain you, but then they won't give you the opposite meanings to those words so that you can go and find the opposite reality to what they're programming you with. We have been psychospiritually infected with a virtual virus comprised of lockdown semantics and syntax. And the disease that perpetuates your delusion is the forced redefinition of your unconditionable observer. Now, the observer is where we are going to study now. This is where we're going to start getting deep. Because you are not the body, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. Okay, marinate with that. You have been made to believe that the programs they placed in your thought that has become a loop that's called your memory is you. Because that's all you've been learned to reference from. But if you were to still your mind one day and say go into a meditation and try to find a still place, you'll find all that cacophonous noise going on from all of what they downloaded into your system. But when you begin to see it for what it is, and you remove yourself without judging what you're looking at in your thoughts, once you remove yourself from the judgment of the thoughts, you're no longer attached to them.
That's right.
You are taught to judge their right and their wrong, which means that when thoughts come up about somebody you hate, some things you don't like, and so forth, the observer has been trained not to have an indifference to it, but to actually judge it as good or bad. When that happens, you're exercising their reality. So now we have to find the unconditionable observer when we want to understand how mind-controlled we really are. It was Sigmund Freud, listen, Sigmund Freud and Carl Gustav Jung who created the concept of the so-called ego. Here's where we're going to start getting to meddling. Because everybody keeps talking about their ego. It's bullshit. There is no goddamn ego. And I'll show you how they played you. Here's where the control paradigm is. The ego is a doppelganger, or double, to take the place of man's mental, neutral individual observer. The individual observer, the one who can make up your mind for you from an organic perspective, is what they call the ego, and what they tell you you must suppress. Listen, they created the concept of the ego as a doppelganger to take the place of man's neutral individual observer, to circumscribe, to encircle and thus incarcerate the free will of the individual and by default the whole masses. All this for the purpose of predisposing and preparing us for what the Illuminati had in store, that being to destroy the foundational superstructures of individual free thought by co-opting and undermining the neutrality of reason.
Wow.
The ego is you acting upon what is organic to you. But they have marginalized your ego because sometimes your ego is giving you the correct information. Now, because you've been taught to think, that you ego tripping. Yeah. In fact, we all are. Because if you were to remove the word ego, you will find that Freud destroyed the neutrality of reason with his redefinition of free will as the ego, thus decommissioning and devaluing the true validity of the neutral, self-perceiving, self-conceptualizing individual observer. These elitists invented this term to steal away and gave de facto control of the individual's observer to the second-order parasites of the Illuminati, who were determined to suppress humanity's free will in order to bloodsuck from the heightened energies of fear and anxiety generated by victims existing within their dysfunctional speculations of reality. So understand that because they have now marginalized the natural reaction of your ego, which is your free will, it is creating physiological disturbances that they can psychologically manipulate by putting semantic names to it, calling you sick in need of suppressants. No one studies free will in psychiatry. They study the ego. This is something that is kind of difficult to understand at the moment. If you don't, it'll start marinating. With his redefinition of the individual neutral observer's free will, he then perfected theories by which to further control the parameters of free thought through concepts like splitting the ego into fragments, where he invented subcategories or particles as offshoots, each one to be blamed for, quote, problems generated by unresolved dichotomies of the mind. So whenever there are dichotomies of the mind, the psychiatrists give a name to those dichotomies that the free will wishes to make an organic assumption on. But you are not allowed to make it because they have defined the parameters through synchronicity that you must now follow, so that you are marginalizing your thinking and thus remain a slave. There is no ego. There is only free will. There is only free will. We got to get out of the concept of this overblown attention to ego that we're studying about all the different behaviorisms that are the reaction to this sick paradigm that we're living in. Understand that the European is the one who created the conditions that we live in, and so thus, naturally, you are going to revulse against it because it's pathological. Anything that's pathological will enlist a natural reaction to it. So just as you drinking poison or eating wrong food will enlist a symptom, living in the thresholds of Western civilization, it is no measure of sanity for you to be functioning properly in a sick society. If you feel you're normal inside of this madness, you're sick. The people who are healthy are in the institutions. They're the ones with the straitjackets. Think about it. What is it except a reaction to the sickness that we live in today? And you all are so anesthetized and so drugged out by the reality you've been given that you really think that you're functioning normally. You're sicker than the guy in the institution. There, brothers and sisters, if you look upon that map right there in the sky, we are sparks of the living light, spiritual sojourners having a physical experience. The ego is a perceptual illusion of the observer created by our interface with and participation in the third density framework of matter. That's who we are. We are creatures, essentially, of light. And we are the free will of the Creator, because the Creator in creation is will in exercise. So if you are exercising free will, you are in touch with the Creator. But if you believe you are functioning with an ego, then you are in the entrapments of this parasite who weaves a web to make you believe that your reaction of free will and your actions towards free will is somehow a disease and should be curtailed. Understand that I have come to a place now where I begin to look at the dichotomies. What the hell is a black Greek?
Come on, speak on it.
Now we have a lot of excuses. Everybody gonna say, well, the Greeks were first black. No, they weren't called Greeks. If you want to call yourself Etruscan or Minoan, yeah. But